Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to Houselights. Specifically, we are in the wing of Predator, where we are not bound by a single director's works, but we sample the works of many directors in a franchise. Specifically, a franchise about a charming alien who shows up to Earth whenever it's just a little bit too hot and murders people left and right for sport. I'm so happy to be here because I'm FBI Special Secret Super Agent hidden in weather-deflecting clothing with radioactive dust, John Mills. And joining me is mouthy detective Darren Moser and no-nonsense Lieutenant Tristan Riddell. Gentlemen, are we ready to solve the crime of the Predator in LA's downtown streets?
That's exactly what LA downtown streets are like. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
That was the first. Okay, that was the first thing that popped in my head. Is that when it said 1997 on the screen, I forgot that this movie wasn't made in 97, and so this was their version of future Los Angeles. But it took me a little bit. It took me a little while to understand that, because as I was watching it, I was just like, "Oh, this is what my in-laws think every major city is like."
But see, this today. is as the resident old guy of the show, I can tell you that you go back to late 80s, early 90s, this is precisely what the news was pumping into everybody's brains was going to happen by the late 90s. That we were going to literally have these super armed paramilitary drug cartels taking over everything with rocket launchers and blowing everything to bits. And so even though I was a youth at the time and we were skeptical that such a future existed for us, it was just accepted. Before we started recording, Darren, you mentioned, this is like RoboCop 3.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I got a hankering to watch RoboCop 3 recently, and it's been a long time since I watched it.
No, you don't. Nobody ever has a hankering to watch RoboCop 3.
Look, I love RoboCop, and I was like, it's been a decade or two, so I popped it back in, and it's
the first is a classic.
Yeah, Rip Torn. You got all sorts of great actors in it. But all that to say is, the scenes when they're like barricading and fighting along. Now, RoboCop's got a jetpack that he's flying through, but I was like, was it like Predator 2 shot on the even days and RoboCop 3 could film on the odd days? Like, it was very, very similar.
Possibly. But I can say that the delightful part about this episode is this is Tristan's first exposure to I almost said RoboCop 2. Different number 2 sequel that was unexpected, but Predator 2. And Tristan, as we get into that part where we start peeling apart everything, what did you know about Predator 2 before you watched it?
Really, the only thing that I knew was the ending. I remember I walked in because I think last week I talked about how, actually, I don't know if we did this on air, but I talked about how my dad wasn't really a big Predator guy, but I saw him watch Predator 2 more than once. And it was always on TV. And now I know why he always watched it on TV and didn't buy a copy. Good Lord.
The TV version. Yes.
TV version probably has slightly less blood. I'm willing to bet.
It's a lot shorter for some reason.
It's only 30 minutes. It's weird. But I remember, I went downstairs and he was watching it, and we get to the end and we see Danny Glover's character, and I was like, I can't remember what I saw, but I was like, what just happened? And my dad, he pauses it because he taped it. And he's like, well, you see, son. So he just got handed a flintlock pistol.
Yes.
And that's the Predator's way of saying they've been around for a long time.
For a very long time.
And just there was no sarcasm. No, he was not being sardonic. It was just complete
That's a pretty cool thing that just happened there.
Yeah.
There's no internet for me to communicate with my friends about, so I'm going to tell you, son.
Yeah. So that's all that I know about the movie is that Danny Glover, got a flintlock pistol at the end, and the Predator handed it to him. So actually,
you
while I
said
was
the
watching
end. I totally
Oh.
thought you were going to talk about the skulls, because that's what usually people talk about when they talk about the end.
Like with the aliens, like the
alien
xenomorph
head,
skull. Yeah. Oh man, I love that. But no, I actually, because my dad told me about that, I thought maybe this Predator wasn't that big of a bad guy. Maybe he was just only taking out a few gang members and cleaning up the streets. And he gave the Predator, who we saw throughout the movie, gave Danny Glover this flintlock pistol as a sign of friendship. Like, that's what I thought was going to happen.
So naive, Tristan. So naive. Wow, what a different worldview you have than me. But I can say that I have to share my first viewing story, because this came out in November of 1990, November 21st, which, if I recall correctly, and I think I do, was the week of Thanksgiving that year. Because I have a very specific memory attached to this, in that I was home from school and it was like a half day or something like that. But, memories sort of like fled together. But I remember I shouldn't have been at home. And my brother said, well, the new Predator movie is out. And I said, oh, is it? And we went to go see it together in the movie theater. And I can say that we had such a time. My brother and I used to go to the movies all the time. Like, it was a real bonding. Everybody who's listened to this show for any amount of time, my brother had the video card. So I saw a whole bunch of movies well before I should have. And so he was my gateway to loving movies. And so this is one of those like movies that's like frozen in amber in my brain, of like, I remember being there with him and seeing the alien skull at the end and just being like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like, it was so exciting. And Darren, you're right. That's the thing that people walk away with. But we have this opening and we have this big action sequence. Now, since we are a director-focused podcast, I presume you gentlemen are familiar with the director of this feature, Stephen Hopkins, and the other works that he is known for. Would that be true, or would that not be true?
Yeah, I totally remember that list of notable works by insert name here. No, I don't recall his pieces.
Well, in the 90s, he did Judgment Night, which had Dennis Leary as a bad guy, and Cuba Gooding Jr. and Emilio Estevez as besties on the run in the inner city. Blown Away, which was a Tommy Lee Jones and Jeff Bridges movie.
That was a David Riddell that was a David Riddell favorite as well. Then
he did The Ghost in the Darkness, which I think was Michael Douglas. And then his career takes a specific slowing down after he did the 1998 adaptation of Lost in Space.
Oh, that tracks.
I love that movie. I love that movie so much.
So
don't
Tristan,
you besmirch the greatness that is Lost in Space, John.
Oh, I will. I'll curb stomp it later. But we have to say, do you detect the signature work of a director here? Tristan, since you were the first to say something about Lost in Space, do you look at this and you go, yes, this is a Stephen Hopkins film?
I think probably more with Blown Away than Lost in Space, because with Lost in Space, it's so apple and oranges, because Lost in Space had a huge budget, a lot of talent, a lot of time, a lot of pre-production, a lot of post. And with Predator 2, it was the filming was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. They had to do it in like 4 weeks or something like that. It was something absurd, where the production was 4 weeks and the editing was 4 weeks. That's almost unheard of for a film of this size. I mean, that's just bonkers. I don't know if those numbers are accurate, but it was short. And I feel like probably the aesthetic with Blown Away is a little bit more in line with Predator 2. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. But just like the in the city, law professionals, I mean, law enforcement agents, like working in, you can kind of see the similarity. But this is the guy who came from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, yes.
You can see that jump where they're like, oh yeah, we want you to do Predator, but we want to do it in a much more graphic way, which makes sense coming from a horror movie. So with Lost in Space, no, not at all. But we do see him go on to do way more TV.
Yeah.
With he did 12 episodes of 24. He did 24 episodes of House of Lies. and 14 of The Fugitive, and 6 of Liaison. Yeah, like, so he's become a pretty successful TV director.
Well, he also directed, I think, I mean, I have to go back and rewatch it because my memory is that it was good, but it was called The Life and Death of Peter Sellers. Came out in 2004. I think Jeffrey Rush was in it, and it's a really, I remember it as a really clever movie and a really good movie. So, obviously he moved from the more, the big budget movies and everything to, the small screen. But Darren, as you watch this, our big establishing action sequence, we don't get a ship being dropped off in space. We're just thrown right in.
Right.
How did you feel about the action? Like, do you think that it sets the appropriate tone for the movie? Did it feel like an unnecessary set piece? Would you have liked a slower build like in the first one?
No, I mean, this movie, you want to talk about a movie that feels like it was made in 1990? Like,
oh, yes.
Go no further than this movie. And it's so funny because we have McTiernan doing Predator, but I was getting major Last Action Hero vibes off of this. Like, I think half of Last Action Hero is riffing on this movie alone. Just the, the upbeat, or not the upbeat, the tightly wound, police chief that's yelling at the guy, the new rookie that's brought in. Like, there's so many cliches in this movie. But to your question, John, the opening was great. I love that, we start with the jungle drums and it's like kind of a jungle, but no, it's just a tidy green patch of Los Angeles as we pan up, and it's like the urban jungle. I mean, the poster writes itself. But no, I think, again, you're right here. You're with Glover. You have major Lethal Weapon vibes. It's all gelling in this movie. And for the most part, I think that works. But in some ways, it's almost like it's not its own thing. Like, it's so on the border of cliche of 90s action, like from the lines they get to, the female cop, I feel like is Vasquez, like walked out of Alien into this movie in a lot of her mannerisms. So while I did like the opening and I think it set it up really well, overall, I feel this movie is just such an amalgamation of 90s action, and it's going to take a bit for it to kind of chart its own course.
So you think this isn't this doesn't feel like a Predator movie to you? This feels like they had a script and then they tacked Predator onto it, which isn't the case. That's not how they they actually did it
that far. I would say if you made the sequel Predator movie in 2000, it's going to feel like Blade, 2000, Matrix. If you make it in 1990, it's going to feel like this. So it's a reflection more on when it was made than the fact that it's a Predator movie.
Interesting. Okay.
I was stoked with the premise when we started the movie. Like when I started watching it, like, cause I vaguely knew the premise beforehand, but when I started really sitting down and thinking about it, what a cool direction to go. Because they could have done something a little bit safer and done a clone of the first one where, like, okay, well, we're not going to get Arnold, so let's get another action hero. Let's get another, like a beefy white guy, and just go to a different part of the world. Like let's go to like the jungles in China, or let's go to like a desert in Africa.
Stallone in the Amazon,
something, yeah, like Stallone in the Amazon, something like that. Like that would have been so easy to do. But to kind of turn it on its head and say, like, no, like, we're not going to get Mr. Olympia. We're going to get Danny Glover, and it's going to be in the middle of a heat wave in futuristic Los Angeles where it's just gone to pot. I think that's pretty cool. That's pretty ballsy. And like, as I'm watching that opening sequence, I was like, do you know who could save the day? A middle-aged cop who's just had just had it up to here.
And he doesn't play by the rules either.
Yeah,
you can't play by the rules if you're fighting the Predator. You got to write your own rule book.
Again, these are all cliches, guys. These are all the cliches that are in these movies.
What's interesting? I didn't really think about this. Like, I was reading up on the movie, and Danny Glover said that he didn't want to pass on the movie when they offered it to him because you don't often see a black man as a lead fighting a supernatural being or an alien or something like that. And I was thinking, I was just like, yeah, I guess so. Like, it's just not something that clicked, especially, we're living in a post Men in Black world, but like, you're just like, yeah, I guess that is kind of true. I'm glad he did it. I friggin' love Danny Glover.
Oh, he's terrific. But the premise gets you going. You're thrown into the action. You're like, okay, this is not going to be like the first one. So does it keep the momentum for you? Is there once it hooks you and you go in and you have that first big action sequence, and then the Predator shows up all invisible and starts murdering the drug cartel people, does it keep your attention? Does it ever struggle? At what point does it struggle with the momentum? Because I'm getting a sense that we've talked about premise. Is there a point at which this movie starts to lose momentum for you? Do you think that it handles the juggling of narrative and action well?
I'll go first because I want to hear Tristan's point too. I would say for me, once we meet King Willie, it's kind of stalling out for me. Where before that, there's a lot of mystery. It's like, what is going on? But because of how the mystery is unfurled, there's also a lot of side plots. There's the drug war and the turf war and the new guy to the station. And so you have all of that. You have him rebelling against his captain. You have the special agents showing up. So there's 5 or 6 plot lines going on that they all resolve by the end. But in the middle, it is a web. And I don't know. I just think of, I don't know why this just struck me. It made me think of Gargoyles, the TV show. Whereas Gargoyles is told in New York City and at night, but it was more singular in its episodes. Obviously, it's a kid's show. It's meant to be. So where that would cut through the noise and give you, this is what the story is going to be tonight. This one, by the time we got to meeting King Willie, and it was kind of like the other meetings, and how is he different than the other ones, I was kind of ready for the next act to kind of get going.
Before you answer, Tristan, about how it handles action and narrative, I want to point out that another thing that late 80s, early 90s movies were obsessed with was the rising threat of voodoo practicing Jamaican gangs that were going to invade the world.
It would happen more than you thought.
Yeah.
Okay. So as I'm watching this movie and we see the gangs at the beginning, and I mean, they all look like stereotypical Hispanic bangers, amped up on steroids. They literally take a handful of coke, snort it to get themselves prepped up, and just
I thought it was sugar. That was cocaine. Okay,
no, flour.
They're pounding their chest, and
that's Billy right there. That's the Billy of this episode.
Yeah,
there you go.
I'm like, good Lord! If I sat down and try to think of the most offensive stereotype I could, I would not be able to go this far. And then we double down with the voodoo gangs from Jamaica, and I don't even think they practice voodoo in Jamaica. But apparently there were a string of voodoo gangs in Kansas City in the 80s or something like that.
Well, but the thing is, they popped up in the movies. I mean, even one of Steven Seagal's movies, was it March
James
for
Bond?
Death? Yeah, right. But it was Marked for Death, which is around this time, all that sort of thing. Basically, movies have always just been a copycat for them, and so it's one person does it in a movie, and they're like, yeah, Jamaican gangs. Everybody saw that in the last movie. We can do that one too. And the fascinating thing, I do want to say that I believe that Stephen Hopkins was actually born and raised in Jamaica. Yeah, Jamaican-born British director. So he was born in Jamaica. And so it's interesting that he brings in that aspect to the movie. And I can only think that it's at least partially informed by that whole zeitgeist of the time of LA is going to become a war zone with a paramilitary gang, and the Jamaican gangs are going to be fighting too. And it's that's just, movies are about appealing to your base emotions and everything like that. And there you go, sort of thing. But
it's funny that you bring up Steven Seagal though, because I want to work this in, because they went to Steven Seagal to be the lead.
Oh no!
This is the most Steven Seagal thing I've ever heard. he said he's like, I'll do it, but I want to rewrite the character. And they're like, okay, all right.
Of course
What
you do.
What do you want to do? He's like, I want to be a CIA psychiatrist who knows martial arts.
I'm glad that they went with Danny Glover instead.
I love it so much.
Yeah,
it's so great.
You know what? If they're going to come out with these anthology shows on Hulu, what the hell? Let's get that concept in there too. Who's it going to hurt? Who's it going to hurt? So, Tristan, does this movie do a decent job of juggling narrative and action set pieces?
No, not at all. It was like you have this really interesting opening scene and opening action scene that gets you hooked. The middle happens, and then you have a really, really interesting one-on-one fight between Danny Glover and Predator. And I think that's kind of how it is for me, where like all the stuff in the middle was just, I was like, okay, wow, this is really freaking graphic. Okay, whoa, okay. Man, and then like it just keeps going and just keeps getting crazier. Then the dude's upside down, his dong's flapping on, and like it's just absolutely insanity. And I'm starting to look at my watch, and like the train thing was cool, and I find out that that's ripped from the comic books that came out after the first Predator came out. But yeah, I did. There were some cool action scenes, but I do not think that they worked well together, because like I was intrigued at the beginning, and then I wasn't intrigued again until we got the one-on-one time, kind of like how I was with the first Predator movie.
What's interesting is the train thing is also something that you would see appear in at least one other sequel to a movie you didn't expect a second movie from, Highlander. Highlander 2 has an infamous train sequence that I would say pound for pound, if I put these two train sequences, while there are issues with the way it's put together in Predator 2, the one in Highlander 2 is god awful. And I would sooner watch this train sequence 100 times over. So,
man, one day I'm going to get you to watch The Quickening.
Oh,
we're going to review it.
No. Which version of The Quickening? Which of the 4 versions that are out there?
To Predator 2.
Well, but as a quick aside, you mentioned how graphic it was. There were cuts made to this. It was originally NC-17. And
I believe it.
And the MPAA was like, guys, no, cut it back a little bit.
You can't physically show him cutting his head off. Oh, why not? Like, I wouldn't have been surprised if that was in the movie at the beginning.
Darren, I want to ask you, with the FBI or CIA or FBI, FCBIA, whoever the people are that show up, that's headed up by Gary Busey, the always terrific, over-the-top Gary Busey.
Love Gary Busey.
Do you think that they portray them, like, are they a convincing antagonist? Do you feel that team of specialists is a distraction? Do you feel that they're an addition to the movie?
It's funny that you say antagonist, because they're more like a force of nature in this. Like, they're an obstacle that Danny Glover has to go against and get around, but they're not. I mean, obviously they're against him, but I would almost not even say antagonist, because obviously the Predator is the antagonist. The Predator is the what he's fighting against.
I'm with you, Darren. I never really saw him as antagonists.
They were just kind of in the way. But it was interesting. I mean, reading that, and I don't know if this is true. I mean, Wikipedia is always right, but it was saying that Keyes, that Gary Busey's role, was a replacement for Dutch, for Arnold Schwarzenegger. I had never heard that they were planning on bringing in Dutch to for that small of a moment of like, oh, we're going to try to capture it. Like, that would have completely shifted the tone of the last act if like Arnold walks in and is like, I'm going to capture him with science. Like, what?
I have read different things in that, like, because there was a couple different ways that I think that they were going to bring Dutch back.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I think it was because Keyes, I think Keyes was always Keyes.
That makes more sense. I can't imagine that role shifting so much of like, oh, we didn't cast Arnold and it became this other thing.
Yeah, I think what I've read the most, what I've heard the most is that there, and I would have freaking loved this scene. It was I can't imagine that they would have gotten away with it back then, but they could probably do it today, where Keyes goes to the hospital to talk with Dutch about how to take down a predator, and Dutch is dying from radiation poisoning
from the
being so
explosion.
close to the
being so close to the explosion in the first one. I was like, that would have been phenomenal. That would have been phenomenal.
Or I was thinking you could even do, if you couldn't like shoot that much, you could have like a debriefing videotape of like he just came out of it, and maybe even have him all bandaged up, and like you can tell the radiation's getting to him, and he's just sitting in a hospital bed, and he's just like spouting about his time in the jungle.
Yeah,
and they're playing that on the monitor in the cryo truck.
They did that with Anna, actually, on our Anna.
That's right.
They filmed that exact thing with her, and they were going to put it in the movie, but then it got cut. But you can actually see a little bit of her in the cryo truck, and that's why she's credited in the movie.
Well, I mean, you know that they would not have been able to resist having some discussion about, and watch out for the thing on his forearm because it has a bomb. So,
they knew about that, obviously.
Did Danny Glover know specifically about it?
Danny didn't, but Keyes knew.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying is they would have had it would have been a rule making video where it would have been like, here are the rules of fighting the predator sort of thing. And I'll go ahead and say it, get your feedback on this from both of you. But I think that the reason Glover works as a character is because of the fact that he is not given super special knowledge to outwit the predator. He figures this all out on his own. And that's
the only way it works.
Yeah. And if they had cheated and given him some super special knowledge, then his victory is not as special as it is.
And that's because Keyes had that knowledge. And so watching him lose, it ups the stakes again. Because you're like, oh, the military funded guy, didn't. And I love that part where it's probably my favorite shot, just visually and story wise, is when the predator starts changing his vision, because they're so sure he can only see heat, and they're so cocky and confident that they have him figured out. And when he's just like, and he hears something move, and he's like, oh, well, let me just boop, boop, boop. And he's like, and then all of a sudden he sees the one with the lights, and you're like, oh, you guys are so dead. You're so dead. And I mean, later we've seen that done in like the video games and other things, but I had to put myself back into that moment of like, oh, it's 1990. You don't know the predator has multivision. You know what Keyes knows. And I love that scene.
Well, I think that this is one of those ones where I think it's very difficult because, and to bring it back to you, Tristan, is there any charm for you looking at it as an artifact of 1990? Is there anything where you look at it and this is the type of movie where you're like, oh, this is what they used to think action movies were, or by their standards, like they're a pre-space flight race. They think this is a good movie. Like, is there any charm that this movie brings along with it?
That specifically, no, I don't think so. Because with Predator, the first one, I feel like part of its charm is you recognize how much that started, like how much that penetrated the zeitgeist, and how many one-liners that are still referenced today. And so like that gives it a lot of leeway because of that. With Predator 2, this didn't start anything. This wasn't this didn't start the trope of the angry police chief, or the super violent gangs, or the middle-aged cop who doesn't listen to orders. Like none of that is new. None of that is new. So no, I don't think it has any charm from the 90s. I mean, there's certain things, there's certain times when you'll watch a 90s movie and you're like, this is so 90s, like this is fun. Or like you watch something that's, like, I don't know, like Stallone in the 90s, like Demolition Man or Judge Dredd or something like that. Like it's so cheesy and over the top, but you're just like, it's part of the era. With this one, I don't really get that charm. It's just an ultra violent mess that has pretty interesting bookends.
The score, though, Darren, has Alan Silvestri returning. I think this is the only Predator sequel that has anybody returning Like Silvestri did the first one, Silvestri does this one. The soundtrack for this also got a special limited edition release. Is this score as memorable? Like, does it have as memorable a theme? Like, is there anything about this score that you find particularly effective?
Not particularly. I mean, it's a sequel score. It hits the main themes, the Predator theme, the sounds. Like, it's all the jungle-ness of it is toned down because it's in the city. But I don't know. I think of this movie, and maybe it just wasn't a thing as much in '90. I can't recall really. This movie would have done better with a little more of like either like diegetic music or things from the '90s inserted into it. I'm thinking like Die Hard 3, where there's moments where you're interjecting like actual music into the score, and it's working better. So I yeah, just to me, nothing particular memorable for this.
Tristan, this is very reflective, I think, of the time. Nowadays, if you have a hit movie, it could take anywhere upwards of 15 to 20 years for you to make a sequel. And that's perfectly acceptable, Mr. Cameron. And I think that this movie comes out a scant 3 years or so after the first one. So it's very obviously it's
3
a hit.
years and 8 weeks, because it took 8 weeks to make.
It's a hit. It's a hit. Let's get it into theaters now. Do you think that this is a strong enough concept that it's better if they'd taken just another year or two to develop it? Basically, do you think that any flaws in this movie are a result of the fact that they moved production forward so quickly?
I think it's probably mainly the script. I think they did not spend enough time on the script and pre-production. I think what they produced, I mean, it's a miracle that they did this in 4 weeks or however many weeks they did it. But there's fundamental problems there. I mean, there's only like, because if you try to fix it in editing, it's an hour long.
What's an example? What are one or two of the things that at a script level are just
what
unfixable?
Darren was talking about. There's way too many things going on. There's too many plot lines going on. I think there's too many characters that just kind of bite it along the way. So you don't really get to know them. You don't get used to them and feel their passing.
You're told to care about them.
Yeah,
but not shown why you should care about them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. And I think that's one major issue. And it's just like this. I feel like I may contradict myself here, but in the first one, as they were going through the jungle, they kept trying to like set traps for him. They kept trying to figure out how to get him. And then he would get one of them. And they're like, crap, this dude's gone. Crap, this dude's gone. But they kept trying different ways. And some people went a little crazy. And in this one, he attacks some bad guys, and then the good guys are playing catch up. They're like, okay, what happened here? And then they do it again. Okay, what happened here? Oh, one of our guys died. Okay, what happened here? And so
it kind of feels...
yeah, go ahead, Darren.
It kind of feels like, they watch Predator and they're like, oh yeah, remember that end part where she didn't have a gun and so he didn't attack her? Let's make an entire movie about that. Because that's literally the driving plot for a lot of this movie is Ellie is so armed and everyone has guns, and that's why everyone is dying. It's all justified because they all have weapons, and that's the code of the Predator. Not to slip into rewrite territory, because we do that sometimes when we're talking about a movie.
Once in a while, yeah.
But I feel like, again, great action set piece for the beginning of this. But that started its own movie. And then we kind of also added the Predator into that movie, where something a little more subtle of maybe if the core of this movie had been, oh, they've been visiting us a long time. Like that is the core. We end with the flintlock pistol and we get all that. But what if we're talking about the heat and the heat wave, and remember those killings that happened last heat wave like 5 years ago, like something's more recent, like, oh, this is like very common, we just have never understood it. And it's maybe I would honestly throw the whole Game War stuff out, but it becomes a mystery. It's just the mystery of the killings Because the gang war is a red herring of like they
Right.
think the gang members are doing all the killings for half of it, but really put the detectives to detecting and go to a library, pull out the microfilm. They're looking through the past and trying to figure out, what is happening, and they're starting to put it together. But you realize at the end, like, it's never going to be a published story. No one's ever going to know. The next generation's never going to learn what they learn because they either all die or they don't make it. I'm just throwing things at the wall, but like something like that,
No,
I think could have worked.
I can see what you're talking about, where it's like, 10 years previous, there was a similar summer that was this hot, and there was a whole string of gang killings, and we could never figure it out, and they were super brutal and particularly weird. And then somebody along the way like ties together that they look at the evidence, and like that's where the FBI, CIA, DEA, whatever agency comes in and is like, oh, well, we saw this thing happen in the jungle. We saw similar kill patterns and weaponry used. Right. And we're like look
the,
at this.
Cauterized shots from the
right.
plasma weapon or the net. Like they find a picture of someone killed by the net, and they're like, that's a really specific way to die. Like,
right.
And we see that again, and we're like, huh. And that's the first time they start to think this is the same guy.
Yeah. I concede that point. I shared the whole nostalgic bit that I have with it. So I struggle with that to this day.
We're not
because
taking your nostalgia from you, John, but I get
the thing is, though, I look at a movie like this and I have a particular fondness for exploitation movies from any era, right? Whether it's Roadhouse or Shaft or, the Street Fighter with Sonny Chiba, anything like that. Like, I just love those quickly made, sometimes questionably produced sort of like money grabs that can go out there. And they're just like, all they are is they're just trying to exploit like a love of martial arts. And so you get Jean-Claude Van Damme and Kickboxer or something like that. And you're like, this movie is going to have no plot, but I'm going to see some kickboxing. I love those sorts of things. I adore them. And the thing is, that is what I think this movie falls into. And I think sometimes it's very easy to dismiss that because the first Predator is such just a stone cold action classic that this is a genre swap. And I think that's what's disorienting about Predator 2 is all of a sudden it's a different genre. And you're like, oh, okay, what's happening here?
I will say you can do that well. This does not do that well, but it immediately made me think of like Aliens. Aliens is a sequel that genre swaps from a horror to an action suspense ride.
I don't discount that. I really don't. But I think that at its core, this movie is an acknowledgement that the first Predator is a unique sort of movie. And once you try to figure out what else can we do with a Predator, it's like your options are really kind of limited. And so they just went crazy and they were like, I don't know, what can't you do with a Predator? Right. And they were like, no rules. Let's just have fun.
And I think that's what we're going to see over the next couple of weeks as we continue in this wing. This isn't a franchise where, it grew and grew and grew. It's a franchise of, well, what if we try this angle to recapture that magic? And what if we try this angle to recapture that magic of the first one? And some will succeed better than others, I believe, but it's going to be an interesting ride.
It will definitely be.
So what do you guys think about McTiernan and Hopkins? Like,
director versus director?
Yeah, director.
Oh God, the quality difference is absurd. Are you kidding me?
Well, no, I'm not talking about quality difference. I'm talking about like how they handle the Predator himself, because that's why we call it like the wing of Predator, the wing of King Arthur. Like, how do you think the director handled the character of Predator?
Oh, you know what? I'm going to punk out on this one too. I'm going to say that Hopkins comes in and very obviously says, it's written by the same guys who wrote the first one. And so they're like, we never really established a whole lot of rules. The rules for the Predator are different here. And I think that they don't feel particularly bound, except you have to have invisible effect Predator. That's a necessary thing. You have to have listening to people with your sound wave on the left side of the screen while you look in heat vision predator. Like those are the things that everybody remembers that you have to have. But the rest of it, like they're like, what other weapons can he have? Whatever you want. Okay, cool. And it's like, yeah, so that's sort of a punk out answer, but I think that both movies handled the predator the way that it needs to be handled for the type of environment that he's in.
Yeah, I think people often forget and dismiss in Predator 2 that it establishes a lot. Like, I'd say over 50% of the Predator lore at this point. Weaponry. I mean, we get the disc, we get the combi stick, we get the net. We have the plasma cannon from the shoulder, we have the wrist gauntlets, but we also see, I'd say another thing to your list of things you include, you have the self-healing with the little medical kit. That's always a fun sequence.
I love that scene. I love it so much. And I love the cheap humor. Again, this belongs in the subgenre, and especially in like the cheap humor of the old lady, trying to wake up her husband
in the bathroom,
right? And
Jerry?
She's got a broom because she's going to hit him. And then all of a sudden this 8-foot tall monster comes running out. Nothing happens to the old lady. You can't have anything happen to the old lady. It's just for the laugh of her having a monster bust down the bathroom door. Like, I love that so much. I do, unabashedly.
But yeah, we get the multi-spectrum. We get the clan of predators, and the fact that they are, it reaffirms the whole on safari-ness, And yeah, I'll agree, we're told a lot of that in the third act by Gary Busey, where we're like, I'm going to spell it out for you, cop. This is an alien, and this is why he's here, and this is motivation. And I'm like, oh, well, thanks for telling us that. And I'm glad you read the script, agent. But yeah. But no, I'd say overall, this gives a lot of Predator lore. And but I still could have done with more. I mean, mystery is probably the wrong word, but there was something about the first one. Maybe it must be the jungleness of like, the bodies disappearing, or the first time they see them all like skinned alive and hung upside down. And you're like, oh, this is something different that we have not seen, for them as combatants. Whereas this one, yeah, he's just killing everybody. Like there's just people dying left, right, and center.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that for the fact that the Predator is a hunter, they make the environment a little too target rich at times. Like that's where they really amp things up. And I think that is, Tristan, you mentioned Hopkins comes over from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And by the point that he directed the fifth one, by that point in the franchise, even people like me were like, I don't know, guys, this feels like we're going a little beyond the realm of good taste. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. And I think that, but again, I think it's a tell me, am I crazy? It's just a byproduct of sort of the subgenre it's in, where it's like, you know what? A bunch of teenagers are going to show up and they're going to sit down and they just want to watch the Predator just slaughter a ton of people. Let's get rid of the idea that it's, carefully stalking
Jason.
his prey.
He's basically
yes,
like a horror.
You're right. He is. This is basically a horror movie.
Jason in the City. It's just like that one movie.
No, it is nothing like Jason Takes Manhattan. I've seen Jason Takes Manhattan. This is...
I'm writing the poster right now.
Way
How
better.
will Predator survive in the big bad city? This is what every...
He's a single predator trying to find his way in the big city. Predator 2. Yeah. So, Tristan, although this is not a visual medium, I can sense some incredulousness from you with some of the things that have been said. What are your thoughts about the mystique of the Predator, about the way they handle the Predator? Like, where does this movie fall down for you?
I think, as I was talking about earlier, I think I'm just going to echo what Darren said. I think Darren really hit it on his head, that it was the interesting part to me was Danny Glover going after the Predator, just him, just the two of them. Mm-hmm. Fighting in an urban jungle was fascinating. It was really, really cool, and I really liked it. And it was too horror movie. It was too killing crazy. It was too too much of a frenzy. There was no, like you guys said, there's no hunting. It was really just I show up and I kill these people.
Yeah.
There's no sport in it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fair enough critique. But for somebody, I guess the appeal for me lies in the fact that I did grow up as a horror movie and particularly slasher movie fan. So maybe, just maybe, what I'm responding to is I was a fan of those franchises throughout the 80s. And if Hopkins is coming from that, he's speaking my language, if you will. So I come in and I sit down for Predator 2, and I've watched a bunch of Friday the 13th and Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street and all these other horror movies. Maybe that is the specific spot that he's hitting. And if you're not a fan of those franchises, it's not going to work as well. So I think that's important too. Yeah.
Well, and yeah, I think you're right, John. Slasher, that's a perfect way to say it. It's trying to be a slasher film, but where it kind of diverges to me a little too much from the first movie, because at least in the first movie, like, this is a ace commando squad. We just watched them execute a flawless mission, 0 casualties on our guys. You know, they're nailing it. And so watching them slowly unravel and get picked off, you know, that's building the tension. Whereas this one, you know, it's a race for knowledge, sort of, as we're trying to figure out what this is. I mean, our main character with Harrigan, he doesn't know what it is, and at the end, it's just like, oh, it's an alien. Haven't you figured it out yet? And we're like, no, he didn't know that, but okay, now he does. So, yeah, I think my biggest critiques are, too target rich environment. So we're really disconnected from a lot of the kills. You know, everybody on the train dies, but we're supposed to care about the cop, and like, I don't almost care about any of them. You know, and then you have, you know, the great moments where Danny Glover is figuring it out, but that's not happening until like the very end. I guess, sorry, I'll walk that back a little bit. Really, everything with Danny Glover and the Predator is gold. Like where he's in the cemetery and he sees the necklace hanging and he like wigs out, and we do like get the smash zoom as he's looking around. Like, I expected the Predator pop out from behind one of those tombstones. Like, it was very engaging.
When we're all sitting here saying, oh, this is very late 80s, early 90s type of movie, that specific scene, I'm like, oh gosh, like that. I look at, like, if you just played that scene, I'd be like, oh, the vintage of this movie is somewhere between 89 and 94. That feels pretty much where this movie exists. I agree with you though. Like, it's fun. I think it's of its era. It's of the right moment to do that. So, you know, as we're coming here, rounding third, as we like to say, I'm going to kick off final thoughts here. And I'm going to say that this is a movie that is going to spur 2 strange actions from me. The first one is I'm going to retroactively go back, and Tristan, monster that he is, kind of talked me down from a 5 to a 4 last week. I'm taking the first Predator back up to a 5. Because I can do that. I'm allowed to.
We can do that? We can just go back and change our ratings at any time?
At any time.
Okay.
I'm not breaking any laws right now. I've broken other ones, but not this one. And that's specifically because the second strange thing I'm going to do is I'm going to welcome the hatred and the scorn. I'm going to welcome the disdain that I get for this, and openly acknowledge that this movie has always held a very uniquely special place in my heart, not just because of how I first saw it, but because every time I've revisited it, this is the type of bad movie I like. Because, to borrow a word that I was taught to appreciate from a fellow friend of ours and fellow podcaster Mike Schindler, it's bonkers. This movie is nuts. The screenwriters, the director, everybody comes in and says, you've got 0 time and a ton of money. What are you going to do with this? And they go, okay. And it's one of those things where I think they just go a little crazy because they have too many resources and too little time. And as a result, you get a movie that is just everything in the kitchen sink thrown in this giant, enjoyable gumbo of questionable genre. And I'm going to give this a 4 because I truly enjoy Predator 2. I think that it is it is completely unafraid in a way that sequels are no longer unafraid. Sequels are too safe now. This movie is completely unafraid to just do whatever the hell it wants to and go absolutely crazy with it. And I think it's fun. I think it's a great time. So that's a 4 from me. Darren, where do you land with Predator 2?
I saw it coming. I'm like, he's going to give it a 4.
Yeah, I had to.
But I also see your retroactiveness of like, you can't call Predator 1 a 4 and this a 4.
No, I cannot. No,
that would
not
break.
In good conscience. Not in good conscience.
The 5-star system would fail to mean anything.
We'd have to go to a 6-star system at that point, and then it's just anarchy. It's just crazy.
Darren gives his first half-star review and the world ends. No. I'm giving it a 3. Like it's fun. It for the parts it does well. Like Danny Glover, like man, every shot that he's in, when he's figuring things out, when he's Danny Boy, and all of that, to the end fight, to the Predator, we get to see the Predator ship, we get to see other Predators, we get to see all sorts of cool things that I want to see in this movie. How they go about with the story, you said it, John, bonkers. Like there are so many threads and they're so unraveled in the middle of this movie. I'm just like, I'm just going to skip to the train scene. Oh, I'm just going to skip to the end fight. Like, why not? Maybe probably those middle scenes are probably the most violent, which were probably cut out of the TV version. So this is probably way better viewed in the TV release. So I'm giving it 3. Room to grow for some of these later ones, as I have not seen any of the 3 remaining Predator movies. But Tristan, having this being your first time, where are you ranking this Riddell family favorite? No.
Now, technically,
I'm giving this a 2.
Shame
this
on
is
you.
not a good movie.
Shame on you.
This is a bad film. It's poorly made. It's poorly structured. It's poorly written. Yeah, there are a few things that I like, and we often say, hey, if the stuff that you like is really, really good, it can make up for the crap that doesn't. And no, this is not one of those movies. Like the stuff that works does not make up for the schlock that you have to sit through. No, 2 stars, bad film.
No, I think if they gave it another 8 weeks of script writing and passing and really honed it into something, but it was very much a throw at the wall and see what sticks.
Yes,
there are fundamental problems with it that have to be addressed at the drawing board.
I thought the Predator was the monster. And here we are. We never really talked about the scientific inaccuracy of the alien skull, which is something that I debated with a friend of mine over a lot of time, where he said, well, we know that the aliens are silicon based and they have acid blood. So a polished alien skull should have looked like just glass. And I had that debate with him, and I got to say that would have been pretty cool to see.
That would have been really cool.
Like a giant, like crystal skull type of skull would have been pretty nice.
Dare you say those words in that order?
Yeah,
in my presence.
You know what? I will say them in any order that I want to, but more importantly, the order of words that I care about right now is Darren telling us what we are going to cover next week.
That's right. This movie did so well, we didn't get another sequel for 10 years. Or no, sorry, 20 years.
Yes, that's true.
As we're jumping to 2010's Predators, directed by Nimrod and Tal, here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.